how we hold our lead rope and handle our horses has a drastic impact on that quality of movement that our students get during their lessons. What are the negative impacts of a short lead rope? So first and foremost, when we are holding our lead rope too short, we are drastically impacting the freedom of movement of our horse. One of the most powerful and natural benefits of adaptive horseback riding is the motion and sensory input our students get while riding their wonderful horses during their lesson. So why in the world are we holding and leading our horses in a way that dulls this magic? How you are holding your lead rope and how you're handling your horses during lessons may have way more impact than you have ever imagined on the benefits and experience your students are getting during their lesson. If you're watching on YouTube instead of listening on a podcast, you might be ready to crawl through that screen and give me a stern talking to about how I am currently holding my horse. Or you might not have noticed anything wrong with how I'm holding this horse because it's what you see on a daily basis in your lessons from how you or your students or your volunteers handle your horse. So let's talk about how we hold our lead rope and handle our horses has a drastic impact on that quality of movement that our students get during their lessons. Before you yell at me, for those of you that this is making your skin crawl, let me go ahead and give you my name so that you can correct me using my name. My name is Sabra Popoli. I'm the owner and founder of Hoof Falls and Footfalls. And through Hoof Falls and Footfalls, I am on a mission to help educate, equip, and encourage fellow adaptive, or also called therapeutic, horseback riding instructors, not only here in the US, but around the globe. Short lead ropes, which is the problem that is going on here in this video, is something that is super common, often overlooked, not taught, not talked about as much as it should be in our industry, with how important and drastic of an impact it has on the quality of movement and also the emotional well-being of our horses during their lessons. So before we talk more about our lead rope, I'm going to go ahead and get to a more appropriate length here and give my horse her space so she can just stand here and do her job. What are the negative impacts of a short lead rope? Or on the flip side, when we're holding our lead rope a correct length, what are the positive outcomes we are wanting to see? So first and foremost, when we are holding our lead rope too short, we are drastically impacting the freedom of movement of our horse during that lesson. And that movement of our horse's head goes down into their neck and then down into their spine, which is where our students are sitting and how our students feel that movement. If we are impacting their freedom of movement and the quality of movement, that means then that we're impacting the experience and sensory input that our students are getting during their lesson. When we chronically handle our horses with a short lead rope, we're also interfering with their natural balance and are usually causing them to walk crooked. So if I'm constantly holding her short and shifting her towards me, her body is not going to be able to move in a naturally balanced way because she's compensating for the pressure on the lead rope, my space, and me standing super close to her. So the short handling of the lead rope is a negative impact across the board on that freedom of motion, the quality, balance, and crookedness that we're going to see in our horses. Another thing that we are going to see quite a bit, especially with our horses that have this happen all the time and not just occasionally, is that our horses can get really fussy because we're in their space. So we're constantly micromanaging and pulling and in their bubble, and they just want to have their own space. We should have our own space. And that light input on our horse can get really overwhelming and taxing over time, especially when that horse is being handled by several different people throughout the week, various levels of pressure, maybe different ways of getting pushed and pulled on. And that's a lot for our lesson horses to handle on a regular basis. So we should be handling our horses in a way that sets them up for comfort, allows them to move appropriately, allows them to have their own space, and also allows us to have our own space as well. So when I see a horse that's getting nosy or nippy or pushy or fussy, the first thing I look at is that lead rope getting held too short? And a lot of times it is. Or even if it looks like it's being held longer, there's still unintentional pressure being added on. So see, she went to shift there because I added pressure. So why do we shorten our lead ropes? Why is this a chronic problem that we see from our instructors, our volunteers, our students, and what in the world can we do about it? Well, first, let's talk about why someone might be holding that lead rope too short. Then we're going to talk about some simple solutions to this problem. And they're simple, but they do take practice to continually implement. But I guarantee it is well worth paying attention to making sure we don't have too short of a lead rope during our lessons. So why do we shorten? One of the reasons I see that causes that shortening of the lead rope or holding right here under the buckle is that it's a copycat thing that someone does. Monkey see, monkey do. So someone sees through a movie or through a training or watching an instructor or watching another person that they're holding right here. Also visually, our eyes are kind of drawn to that clip and where it attaches to the halter. And so we tend to grab right there. So could be just, it's more visually appealing. We kind of have an anchor. It's right there. It's close to the horse. It's something that we've seen somebody do. Another cause of this lead rope being held too short on a regular basis could also be just lack of body awareness and what that hand is doing from your volunteer or your student or even yourself. So you might start out with a good length and allowing your horse to move freely, giving them their space so that you can also have yours. But then over time, your hand creepy crawls up and then we're right on top of that snap right underneath of our horse's halter again. So just constantly checking in on where our hand is at and being more aware of our body and what our hands are doing is a huge thing in fixing this chronic problem. And when we're leading our horses, just like when we handle our reins when we're riding, our hand position can be dynamic. We don't always want to have it in one static location because it can change depending on what we're needing to do with our horse at that time. But general rule of thumb is we shouldn't be right up here all the time sitting on our horse's face. Another thing that can cause the too short of lead rope problem is lack of training altogether or lack of quality training for our students and for our volunteers and anyone who is handling our horses. So some people have actually been trained to handle horses in this way, or during their training, the length of the lead rope and their body awareness and hand position and pressure and all of that is just not talked about or taught during that training. So could be lack of quality of training, could be missing pieces from a training, but other pieces of the training are good, or lack of training altogether, and you just kind of hand a horse to one of your volunteers or your students and you assume they're just going to do it right, and then there's no follow through. But then you're getting frustrated with them in class and how they're leading and handling and how your horse is acting, and then the horse isn't moving forward or they're not stopping. Tons of different problems that we can see from this lead rope being way too short. Another reason why we might have our lead rope too short, and I see this a lot, mostly from horse people, is micromanaging. You are wanting to micromanage that horse every step of the lesson and tell them where every single little foot is going to fall, instead of having a well-trained horse and then giving them the space to do their job and manage their body and their balance on their own, which should be happening from a well-trained and well-schooled horse that we are using in our adaptive riding lessons. So stop micromanaging your horses, give them a chance to be good and do their job and manage their own body, which they should be able to do better than you can do. Another reason why someone might hold this lead rope way too short, and this kind of goes into the lack of training or lack of quality training, is someone feeling insecure or unconfident or even maybe scared of that horse next to them, or uncertain in their horse handling abilities. So we sometimes shorten up and grip tight because we're nervous, we're not sure how to control this 1,000-pound animal next to me. And so my human brain thinks, well, I can control things better with my hands, because humans are very hand-oriented creatures and we like to fix things with our hands. So therefore, I'm gonna shorten up on my lead rope and try to fix this uncertain situation and fix this horse with my hands. So with good training and with practice and feedback and just repetition, we can get more confident and more secure and more understanding of how we can handle that horse at a more appropriate length and work in more of a partnership. Another thing that goes into that short lead rope, which ties into a bunch of pieces, so someone feeling uncomfortable, someone feeling unconfident, the quality of training that you're giving people ties into quality or lack of training of that horse. So has that horse actually been appropriately handled on the ground and appropriately taught how to be handled and managed through body language and voice commands and having our lead rope as a last resort. So if we have a horse that's misbehaving and just hasn't been taught how to be appropriately handled and has good ground manners, that's a common phrase we'll say in the horse world, that horse's lack of training or lack of ground manners could feed into how that horse is handled by someone, especially if that person handling them is not as experienced as an instructor. So say your student or your volunteer that would be handling them during a lesson while our students are riding, okay? So what are some helpful solutions then? So I've talked about problems that we have, what we might see in class. So what are our solutions? Well, first thing is to put a marker on our lead rope. This is a really good, easy visual marker. It's just a piece of duct tape. And this is a really easy way for someone to have that visual for their hand to go on that gives them a rough estimate of where they should be holding that lead rope. Also, tactile, feel-wise, I can tell the difference between the lead rope and that piece of tape. So I can actually find that good length without having to look down at my hand if I actually think about that hand placement and that tape. So that could be an easy way to kind of find my place without having to look down. So put a piece of tape on your lead rope and then you have a super easy visual that is hopefully more obvious than that buckle or however the lead rope is attached to that halter. So give your volunteers, give your students, give yourself a new visual of a more appropriate length of lead rope. Where you put the tape, that's going to depend on the height of your horse, how they naturally carry their head at the walk and the trot, height of the volunteer, but kind of rough estimate is about 18-ish inches, give or take. And that's gonna set you up for a nice, comfortable little, what you can call a smile in your lead rope. So that's another tip that you can use, is you can remind people to lead and have a smile in your lead rope to help your students smile during lessons and help your horse smile because you're not on top of their face and pulling on them and micromanaging them. So you can use that phrasing of let's keep a smile in our lead rope. And then if my hand creepy crawls too short to make an adjustment or a correction because maybe this is too long for that moment and I need to shorten for a second, I can give a super friendly reminder to everybody in my lesson, all my horse handlers, hey everyone, tape check, or hey everybody, hand check. And that can be a super stealthy way to address that problem of one or all of your horse leaders having kind of creepy crawled and started handling horses too short, which, like I said, is a very common and chronic problem in our lessons that as instructors, we're gonna have to manage. So you might as well come up with an easy way that's gonna set you and your volunteers up for success, okay? Another thing that you can do that is extremely helpful when it comes to handling the horses and is also a good check on how well trained your horses are to body language and verbal commands and how reliant they are on this lead rope now because of mishandling, is practicing leading horses, you and any of your volunteers that are leading horses during lessons or leading horses to and from their stalls to get ready for classes is to learn how to lead a horse and manage them without actually being attached to them. You could fully attach the lead rope. You could tie the lead rope around the neck so that you do still have it there, but learning how to just be with that horse and communicate with that horse without actually holding on to a lead rope is something that is extremely beneficial for people, because we take that temptation of relying on that physical lead rope and we put it back on good body language and good verbal commands and communication with our horses. So that's a super fun challenge and good training practice that you can do with your volunteers, with yourself. Also something really fun to do with our students. So let me know, have you seen the problem of lead ropes being too short during lessons? What are the negative impacts that you see? How do you fix it? How have you dealt with it in your lessons? Comment down below so that we can listen and learn from each other, and you might have some tips that I've missed on here. But make sure you comment down below, because this is a wonderful way for us to learn from each other. And if you have another topic that you would like me to address during one of my videos or podcasts, I would love to hear from you, because topics like this, too short of lead ropes, and our horse leader is always handling our horses too short and creepy crawling up on lead ropes, is something that is talked about and requested a lot from fellow instructors just like you, and something I have personally also had to deal with and learn how to manage over my time and years of teaching. Thank you so much for joining in. If this was a video that you liked and you got something to take away and apply during your lessons, I would really appreciate a like, a subscribe, and a follow, just so that I know that this is the type of video you like seeing, this is what you like learning about. And that's a super easy way to help get this information pushed out to other instructors. And if this content is out on YouTube or out on a podcast, please share this content with other instructors so that they can also learn and gain tools and tips that's going to help them be more effective, successful instructors, and hopefully not lose their minds with having to correct volunteers and students and other people over and over for over-shortening their lead ropes during lessons.